Hey guys, it's Geography Lover here. Welcome back to another brand new video. And today we're looking at events in the 1970s, and this is in the U.S. Specifically in obviously North America. And this is our sixth episode in the Decades History series. We have from the 1920s all the way into the 2010s, but we haven't gotten those episodes yet. So we're currently on the 70s. We have the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Now we're on the 70s, and we also have the 90s from before. So this is the, once again, sixth episode. So let's get started. So first up is politics, everyone's favorite. There were three presidents who served during the 1970s. The first president was Richard Nixon. He's our 37th president. He served from 1967 to 1974, and he had won the landslide victory against George McGovern in the 1972 election for his re-election campaign. However, he resigned in 1974 due to the Watergate scandal on August 9th. So then his vice president, Gerald R. Ford, became 38th president, and he served from 1974 until 1977, where he lost re-election to Jimmy Carter, who became the 39th president in 1977, and he served to 1981, and he won the 1976 election against President Gerald R. Ford. The major scandals of the 1970s were the spread of communism, but there was obviously the period of détente, which was between the Soviet Union and the United States, where it was a little bit, relations were a little better, but not by much, but they were a little bit better. The Watergate scandal for the Nixon administration, and which was also part of the growing Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union with the spread of communism. So some fashion and tech. We have a camera from the decade, and hippies also carried over from the 60s into the early 70s, so they pretty much carried over. The popular hairstyle of growing one's hair out and curling it was a big fashion statement, and so was growing an afro. A lot of members of the African American community did that. Other people just grew afros in general. Here was a 1970s telephone, which did have a wire still, and had a little rotary, but they were a little smaller than the 60s and 50s phones, so a little different. And then we had a radio here, which is a tune radio with a little handle, so very nice. And then we have entertainment and music. We have two popular bands here. There were several, but two of the most populars was ABBA, who they have a few single hits that you've probably heard of. Dancing Queen, Money, 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 Thank You for the Music, SOS, several other ones, but those were like one of the ones. And Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody, with We Are the Champions, with We Will Rock You, several other ones. But those are the ones that are on top of my head right now. And this poster here is from John Lennon with his Imagine speech. His Imagine, like it's based on a song that he wrote, late 60s, early 70s. And then we have 6 popular movies at the time. There were several others, but these are the ones that I found were very, very important to pop culture today. Jaws, which is a movie about a shark going into this small New England town, terrorizing people. The musicals of Grease and Jesus Christ Superstar, both very popular musicals. The movie Rocky, which was about a boxer. The first Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which was the beginning of the whole saga of Star Wars. And the first Godfather movie also came out in the 1970s. Those were the 6 most popular that I found were the most popular. And some controversies and wars, as I mentioned before, the Watergate scandal of 1974, which was when the Nixon administration broke into the Watergate, which was the Democratic national headquarters. Since the Nixon administration was all Republicans, it was to rig the 1972 election so that Nixon would be easily reelected. He was reelected, but there was some shady dealings going on, so it was very controversial at the time and led to Nixon resigning, basically leaving office. And the Vietnam War, which was still raging on, and the United States left in 1973. The war officially ended in 1975 when South Vietnam fell to the communist North Vietnam, and they were reunited under the communist government. So the economy was not the strongest. The 1970s had a rough economy since they had risen to the issue of stagflation, which was caused by high inflation and unemployment. The 1973 Oil Embargo Act caused a small economic depression from 1973 to 1975, and also the loss of the Vietnam War was also a major contributor of that. And at the end of the decade, the 1979 Iran Revolution also led to the market shift that Iran shifted from a pro-U.S. government to a pro-Soviet government, and they had a revolution. They became more communist-leaning versus being more democracy-leaning, so it kind of created a little bit of tension with the United States, also helping aid a little bit into the Cold War. Some culture, some popular sayings of the decade were dig, far out, cool beans, jive turkey, catch you on the flip side, and boogie. And this was also the decade where the United States celebrated its bicentennial, so from when the American Revolution happened in 1776. It was 200 years later in 1976, so right in the middle of the decade. And then this decade is called the Disco 70s, since disco was a popular dance style that was introduced during this decade with a little disco mirror ball here. And then we have some pictures here from, like, you know, they had integration now, so now, you know, everybody could watch television, everybody could be together in schools. There's popular dances, popular long outfits there, all that. And now we get to the end of the decade. The 1970s ended on December 31st, 1979. The United States was very much changed from the political standpoint and the social standpoint. The country has celebrated its 200th anniversary with a bicentennial. The Vietnam War had changed citizens' ideas of how the government should interfere with other nations to prevent communism. They were a little more skeptical. The economy wasn't the best, but it did improve by the next decade and made a way for the modern world through the achievements that changed the events that happened, and they brought a lot of good things to the world. Many folks were born during this decade. Some folks died. It brought a lot of changes, and it was a transition, but it was a good transition. If you guys are watching this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.